The abduction. The night sky of a rural Oklahoma erupted in a dazzling display of lights, but it wasn't the 4th of July come early. 17-year-old Sarah Mitchell stood frozen in her backyard, mouth agape, as she watched what could only be described as a massive alien spacecraft descend from the heavens. "Mom, Dad, you've got to see this," Sarah called out, her voice barely audible over the low, bone-rattling hum emanating from the ship. But as she turned towards the house, she realized with growing dread that her parents weren't coming. In fact, the entire neighborhood seemed eerily still. The craft, easily the size of a football stadium, hovered menacingly above the quiet suburb. Suddenly, a beam of pale blue light shot out from its underside, sweeping across the ground like a searchlight. Sarah's heart raced as she realized the beam was moving directly towards her. "No, no, no," she muttered, willing her legs to move. But it was as if she were rooted to the spot, her body refusing to obey her panicked mind's commands. The beam washed over her, and Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation spread throughout her body. Her feet left the ground, and she began to rise towards the looming spacecraft. As she ascended, Sarah's mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Aliens weren't real. This was the stuff of movies and late-night conspiracy theory shows, not her quiet life in middle-of-nowhere America. Yet here she was, being pulled into the belly of a ship that defied everything she thought she knew about the universe. The moment Sarah passed through the outer hull of the ship, the paralysis that had gripped her body released its hold. She dropped unceremoniously onto a cold, metallic floor, gasping for air. The room she found herself in was vast and dimly lit, with strange, pulsating, organic-looking structures lining the walls. Before she could gather her wits, Sarah heard a series of clicking sounds approaching. From the shadows emerged three tall, spindly creatures. Their bodies were covered in what appeared to be a chitinous exoskeleton, and multiple compound eyes regarded her with alien curiosity. One of the beings stepped forward, extending a long, segmented arm towards Sarah. She scrambled backward, her back pressed against a wall. "Stay away from me," she shouted, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. To her shock, the alien responded in perfectly understandable English, though the words seemed to bypass her ears and materialize directly in her mind. "Do not be afraid, human specimen. You have been chosen for study. Your cooperation will ensure the painless extraction of information." Sarah's fear began to give way to anger. "Chosen specimen? I'm not some lab rat for you to experiment on." As her emotions surged, something strange happened. The air around her seemed to crackle with energy, and the nearest alien took an involuntary step back. "Interesting," the lead alien mused, its multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession. "The subject displays unusual energy readings. Proceed with caution." As two of the aliens moved to flank her, Sarah felt a surge of something building within her. It was as if every cell in her body was vibrating with barely contained power. "I said stay back," she yelled, throwing her hands out in front of her. What happened next defied explanation. A wave of invisible force erupted from Sarah's outstretched palms, sending the aliens flying across the room. They crashed into the far wall with a sickening crunch, their exoskeletons cracking under the impact. Sarah stared at her hands in disbelief. Had she done that? How? She'd never displayed any kind of supernatural abilities before. Was it something about the ship, the abduction process? Or had this power always been dormant within her, waiting for the right moment to manifest? She didn't have long to ponder these questions. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship, and Sarah could hear the sound of many alien feet rushing towards her location. Adrenaline surging through her veins, she made a split-second decision. If she was going to have any chance of escaping and warning others about the invasion, she needed to act now. Sarah focused on the strange energy she'd felt moments before, willing it to respond to her commands. To her amazement, a shimmering field of energy coalesced around her body. Taking a deep breath, she charged towards the nearest wall, hoping against hope that her newfound powers would protect her. The impact was jarring, but Sarah felt only a mild discomfort as she burst through the ship's hull and into the open air. She was falling, the ground rushing up to meet her at an alarming rate. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Sarah forced herself to concentrate. The energy field around her body pulsed, and her descent began to slow. As Sarah touched down gently on her front lawn, she looked up to see the massive alien ship beginning to move. Smaller craft were now pouring out of it, no doubt searching for their escaped prisoner. In the distance, she could hear screams and the sound of destruction as the invasion began in earnest. Sarah clenched her fists, the strange energy still coursing through her body. She didn't understand what was happening to her or why she'd been given these powers, but one thing was clear. She had to find a way to stop this invasion and save her world. As she turned to run, Sarah caught sight of her reflection in a nearby window. Her eyes were glowing with an otherworldly light, and faint lines of energy crisscrossed her skin. She hardly recognized herself. In the span of mere minutes, she had gone from an ordinary teenager to humanity's best hope against an alien threat. "Okay, Sarah," she muttered to herself, watching as alien ships descended on her town. "Time to see what you're really capable of." With that, Sarah Mitchell, the girl who had been abducted by aliens only to discover she was something far more than human, took her first steps into a war that would determine the fate of her entire species. The aliens had made a fatal mistake in choosing her, and she was determined to make them regret ever setting foot on Earth. As Sarah raced through the chaos-filled streets of her once quiet town, her mind struggled to process the radical shift her life had taken. Just hours ago, her biggest concern had been her upcoming calculus test. Now, she was dodging energy blasts from alien ships while trying to corral her newfound powers. A group of her neighbors huddled behind an overturned car, terror etched on their faces as a hovering alien craft took aim at their hiding spot. Without thinking, Sarah thrust her hands forward. The same invisible force that had sent the aliens flying on the ship now slammed into the craft, sending it spiraling out of control and crashing into a nearby field. "Run!" Sarah shouted at the stunned group. "Get to the high school. It has a basement." As the people scrambled to safety, Sarah noticed more alien ships converging on her position. She had inadvertently painted a target on her back. Closing her eyes, Sarah concentrated on the energy flowing through her body. She envisioned it spreading out, creating a protective bubble around her. When she opened her eyes, she found herself encased in a shimmering force field. Just in time, too, as a barrage of energy blasts from the alien ships bounced harmlessly off her shield. "Okay," Sarah muttered to herself, "I can do this. I can fight back." With growing confidence, she began to push her powers further. She discovered she could manipulate the energy around her, forming it into solid shapes. With a thought, she created a glowing, translucent platform beneath her feet and willed it to rise. Soaring above the rooftops, Sarah got her first clear view of the invasion's scale. The massive mothership loomed over the town, disgorging wave after wave of smaller craft. In the distance, she could see similar scenes playing out over other communities. The attack wasn't limited to a small corner of Oklahoma. This was a full-scale global invasion. As Sarah watched in horror, a realization struck her. The aliens weren't just attacking random targets. They were methodically targeting communications infrastructure, power plants, and military installations. This wasn't a smash-and-grab raid. The invaders were here to stay. A squadron of alien fighters broke off from the main group, vectoring towards Sarah's floating platform. She gritted her teeth, preparing for the confrontation. As the ships opened fire, Sarah reached out with her mind, grabbing hold of the energy blasts themselves. With a gesture, she redirected the attacks back at the alien craft, watching in amazement as 3 of them erupted in flames. The remaining ships broke off their attack, retreating to a safe distance. Sarah could almost feel their confusion and fear. She wasn't supposed to be able to do this. She was supposed to be a helpless specimen, not a force of nature capable of turning their own weapons against them. As the adrenaline of the fight began to wear off, Sarah felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. Using these new abilities was taking a toll on her body. She needed to find a safe place to rest and figure out her next move. Guiding her energy platform down to street level, Sarah spotted a familiar face amid the chaos. Mr. Jenkins, her high school physics teacher, was helping a group of students into the back of his pickup truck. "Mr. Jenkins," Sarah called out, running towards him. The older man's eyes widened as he took in her glowing appearance. "Sarah, what in the world happened to you?" "It's a long story," Sarah replied, glancing nervously at the sky. "But right now, we need to get these people to safety and find a way to contact, well, anyone who can help." Mr. Jenkins nodded, his shock giving way to determination. "The school has an old ham radio in the science lab. If it's still intact, we might be able to reach the outside world." As they piled into the truck, Sarah created a dome of energy around the vehicle, protecting it from debris and any stray alien attacks. As Mr. Jenkins navigated the debris-strewn streets, Sarah's mind raced. She had been given these powers for a reason, but what was she supposed to do with them? How could one girl, no matter how powerful, hope to stop a global alien invasion? The high school came into view, its sturdy brick walls still standing amidst the destruction. As they pulled into the parking lot, Sarah's energy dome flickered and died. The strain of maintaining it had pushed her to her limits. "Sarah, are you all right?" Mr. Jenkins asked, concern evident in his voice. She nodded weakly. "I just need a minute to catch my breath. These powers, they're new, and I'm still figuring out how to use them." As the group made their way into the school, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important. Why had the aliens chosen her? And why had these dormant abilities suddenly awakened? The answers, she suspected, lay back on that alien ship, and sooner or later she would have to return there to find them. But for now, her priority was clear: contact the outside world, rally whatever human forces remained, and find a way to push back against the invasion. As Sarah followed Mr. Jenkins to the science lab, she caught her reflection in a hallway mirror. The girl staring back at her, with her glowing eyes and energy-infused skin, was a far cry from the ordinary teenager she'd been just hours ago. She was something new, something the aliens clearly hadn't anticipated. "I don't know why I was chosen," Sarah whispered to her reflection, "but I'm going to make those aliens regret ever setting foot on Earth." With renewed determination, Sarah turned away from the mirror and hurried to catch up with the others. The fate of humanity now rested on her shoulders, and she was determined not to let her planet down. The aliens had made a fatal mistake in abducting her, and she was going to make sure they paid for it, not just for her sake, but for the sake of every human being on Earth. The awakening. Sarah Mitchell stood in the ruins of her high school's science lab, her hands hovering over the sputtering ham radio. Sparks of energy danced between her fingertips as she focused her newfound powers, willing the ancient equipment to life. Mr. Jenkins and a handful of shell-shocked students watched in awe as the radio crackled to life, defying the electromagnetic interference blanketing the planet. "This is Sarah Mitchell broadcasting from Oakville, Oklahoma." She spoke into the microphone, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding outside. "We are under attack by an alien force. If anyone can hear this, we need help. But more importantly, I have information that could turn the tide of this invasion." For agonizing minutes, only static answered her plea. Then suddenly, a voice cut through the white noise. "This is Colonel Hawkins of the United States Strategic Command. We're receiving you, Sarah. What's your situation?" Sarah's heart leaped. They weren't alone in this fight. As she began to explain the events of the past few hours, a blinding light flooded through the windows. The alien mothership, impossibly vast, was descending directly over Oakville. "They're coming for me," Sarah realized aloud. She turned to Mr. Jenkins and the others. "Get to the basement. I'll draw them away." Before anyone could protest, Sarah was running, her body humming with power she still didn't fully understand. As she burst out of the school doors, she was met by a sight that froze her in her tracks. Hovering above the football field was a sleek, predatory craft unlike the others she'd seen, and standing before it, flanked by a phalanx of alien soldiers, was a figure that could only be their leader. The alien commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, its iridescent exoskeleton shimmering with an almost hypnotic quality. But it was the eyes that captured Sarah's attention, multifaceted orbs that seemed to peer directly into her soul. Sarah Mitchell, the alien's voice reverberated in her mind. "I am Supreme Commander Zix of the Nephilim Collective. You have caused us inconvenience." Sarah stood her ground, forcing steel into her voice. "I'd say I'm sorry, but then I'd be lying." A sound like grinding stones emanated from Zix. Laughter, Sarah realized with a chill. Your species' penchant for defiance is amusing, futile but amusing. "Why are you here?" Sarah demanded. "Why invade us? And what did you do to me?" Zix tilted its massive head, compound eyes glittering. "Humanity has something we need, a genetic quirk, rare but invaluable. You, Sarah Mitchell, are the key to unlocking that potential." As Zix spoke, Sarah felt a strange resonance building within her. The alien's presence seemed to amplify her powers, making the very air around her crackle with energy. "You are what we call a catalyst," Zix continued. "1 in a billion. Your DNA, properly harnessed, could elevate our entire species, or, in the wrong hands, destroy us utterly." Sarah's mind reeled. She wasn't just some random abductee. She was the reason for the entire invasion. "So what now?" she asked, buying time as she felt her powers growing stronger by the second. "You take me back to your ship and experiment on me?" Zix made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "That would be the prudent course of action. However, your escape has complicated matters. The humans now know of your potential. They will fight to keep you, to use you as a weapon against us." As if on cue, the distant rumble of jet engines filled the air. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The cavalry, it seemed, was on its way. "It appears we're at an impasse," Sarah said, raising her hands as energy coalesced around them. "So let me make this simple. Leave. Leave now and never come back, or I'll show you exactly what this catalyst can do." Zix's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "You would side with your doomed species over the chance to be part of something greater, to unlock the full potential of your gifts." For a moment, Sarah hesitated. The offer was tempting. The chance to understand her powers, to be part of something cosmic in scale. But then she thought of her parents, of Mr. Jenkins and her classmates huddled in the basement, of all humanity fighting against impossible odds. "My gifts," Sarah said, her voice growing in strength. "Let me show you my gifts." With a primal scream, Sarah released the pent-up energy within her. A shockwave of pure force exploded outward, shattering windows for blocks and sending the alien soldiers flying. Zix alone stood firm, protected by some unseen barrier. Impressive, the alien commander conceded. But futile. You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Nephilim Collective. Sarah grinned, feeling more alive than she ever had. "Watch me." As if responding to her challenge, the sky lit up with explosions. Human fighter jets screamed overhead, engaging the alien craft in a desperate aerial battle. On the ground, tanks and armored vehicles burst onto the scene, their weapons trained on Zix and his forces. "This isn't over, Sarah Mitchell," Zix said as a beam of light from his ship enveloped him. "The catalyst will be ours, one way or another." As the alien commander vanished into his ship, Sarah turned to face the arriving human forces. Colonel Hawkins, a grizzled veteran with eyes that had seen too much, approached her cautiously. "I don't know what the hell you are, young lady," he said gruffly, "but right now, you're the best hope we've got. Are you ready to save the world?" Sarah looked up at the raging battle in the sky, then back at the colonel. Her eyes glowed with otherworldly power as a smile spread across her face. Colonel, I was born ready. As Sarah prepared to join the fray, she knew that this was just the beginning. The aliens had made a fatal mistake in choosing her, in underestimating humanity's resolve, and she was going to make damn sure they regretted it. The battle for Earth had begun, and at its center stood a teenage girl with the power to reshape destiny. The Nephilim had no idea what they'd unleashed, but they were about to find out. The rebellion. The skies over Oakville blazed with the fury of interstellar warfare. Sarah Mitchell, the newly christened Catalyst, soared through the chaos on a platform of pure energy, her eyes aglow with power barely contained. Below her, the combined forces of humanity fought with desperate valor against the technological might of the Nephilim Collective. On your left, kid, Colonel Hawkins' gruff voice crackled through the comms unit's Sarah wall. She pivoted just in time to see a Nephilim fighter bearing down on her. With a gesture, she created a shimmering barrier of energy. The alien craft smashed into it, disintegrating on impact. "Thanks for the heads up, Colonel," Sarah replied, allowing herself a small grin. "How are we holding up?" The Colonel's sigh was heavy with the weight of command. "We're hanging on by our fingernails. Your light show is keeping them off balance, but we need a game changer and fast." Sarah's mind raced. She was powerful, yes, but one gifted individual couldn't win a war alone. Then, a wild idea struck her. "Colonel, what if we could turn their own ships against them?" "I'm listening." "The Nephilim, they're connected to their tech somehow. I felt it when I was on their ship. If I can interface with one of their vessels, maybe I can hijack it." There was a pause filled only by the sounds of battle. "That's a hell of a risk, Sarah. You sure about this?" Sarah watched as another human fighter exploded in a ball of flame. "No," she admitted, "but what choice do we have?" "All right," Hawkins conceded. "I'm sending a squad to cover you. Just be careful, kid. You're too important to lose." As Sarah descended towards the largest grounded Nephilim ship, a strange calm settled over her. This was what she was meant for. Not just fighting, but bridging the gap between human and alien. She was the key, not just to victory, but to understanding. The moment her feet touched the organic surface of the alien vessel, Sarah felt a jolt of recognition. The ship was alive, in a sense, a hybrid of technology and biology far beyond human science. She placed her palms flat against its hull, closed her eyes, and reached out with her mind. Instantly, she was elsewhere. A vast network of information surrounded her, incomprehensible alien thoughts and data streams whizzing by at light speed. Sarah felt herself beginning to drown in the deluge. "Focus," she told herself, gritting her teeth against the mental onslaught. "You can do this." Gradually, the chaos began to coalesce into patterns she could understand. Ship systems, weapons controls, navigation, all became clear to her. With growing confidence, Sarah began to assert her will over the alien tech. In the physical world, the Nephilim ship shuddered, its weapon ports closed, engines powering down. Then, to the amazement of human and alien alike, it began to rise. "Holy shit," Hawkins breathed over the comms. "She's actually doing it." Sarah opened her eyes, a fierce joy surging through her. The massive alien warship now hung suspended in the air, awaiting her command. But as she prepared to turn its weapons against the Nephilim fleet, a familiar and chilling voice echoed through her mind. Impressive, young Catalyst, Supreme Commander Zix's thoughts invaded her consciousness. "But did you really think it would be so easy?" Suddenly, Sarah's connection to the ship was severed. She fell to her knees, gasping, as the vessel's systems came back online, now firmly under Nephilim control. "Foolish child," Zix continued, his mental voice dripping with disdain. "You may be a catalyst, but you are untrained, undisciplined. Did you truly believe you could master our technology so easily?" Sarah struggled to her feet, anger and determination burning away her fatigue. "I'm a quick study," she shot back, "and I'm just getting started." As if to punctuate her words, the air around Sarah began to crackle with energy. Her hair lifted in an unseen wind, eyes blazing with an inner fire. The Nephilim soldiers surrounding her took involuntary steps back. "You want to see what a catalyst can really do?" Sarah's voice resonated with power. "Let me show you." With a primal scream, Sarah released the full force of her abilities. A shockwave of pure energy exploded outward, not destroying the alien ship, but transforming it. The organic metal twisted and reshaped itself, responding to Sarah's will in ways even she didn't fully understand. When the light faded, the Nephilim warship had been remade. It was smaller, sleeker, a perfect fusion of human and alien design. And at its heart stood Sarah, no longer interfacing with the ship, but fully integrated with it. "This is what a catalyst can do," Sarah's voice boomed, amplified by the ship's systems. "We don't just use technology, we transcend it." Across the battlefield, human and Nephilim forces alike paused, staring in awe at the transformed vessel. In orbit, aboard the Nephilim mothership, Supreme Commander Zix felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "All Nephilim forces," Sarah's voice echoed across every communication channel, human and alien alike. "This is your one and only warning. Leave Earth now, or face the consequences." For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a series of flashes, the Nephilim fleet began to retreat. Smaller ships docked with the mothership, which then turned ponderously away from Earth. As cheers erupted from the human forces below, Sarah allowed herself to truly smile for the first time since this ordeal began. But her victory was short-lived. As the mothership prepared to jump to hyperspace, Zix's final message slithered into her mind. "This isn't over, Catalyst. You've won a battle, but the war has just begun." With a flash of light that outshone the sun, the Nephilim mothership vanished, leaving Earth's sky empty save for the debris of battle. Sarah descended to the ground, the transformed ship settling gently beside her. As she stepped onto the war-torn field, no longer glowing with power, but looking every bit the weary teenager she was, Colonel Hawkins approached. "That was one hell of a light show, kid," he said, a rare smile creasing his weathered face. "I'd say you've earned yourself a rest." Sarah shook her head, her eyes fixed on the stars. "No rest, Colonel. Zix was right about one thing: this is just the beginning." As medical teams and curious scientists swarmed around them, Sarah knew that her life would never be the same. She was Earth's catalyst now, the bridge between human and alien, technology and biology. And somewhere out there, the Nephilim were regrouping, planning their next move. The battle for Earth was over. The war for the galaxy had just begun. And Sarah Mitchell, the girl who was chosen by aliens only to become their greatest fear, was ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The counterattack. 6 months after the Battle of Oakville, Earth had transformed. The fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Nephilim technology had catapulted humanity into a new era. And at the center of it all stood Sarah Mitchell, the catalyst, now a beacon of hope and the face of Earth's resistance. Sarah stood on the bridge of the ES Prometheus, Earth's first true interstellar warship. Gone was the uncertain teenager. In her place stood a young woman hardened by conflict and responsibility. Her eyes, still glowing faintly with inner power, surveyed the holographic display of the Milky Way. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of authority beyond her years. Colonel Hawkins, now General, stepped forward. "The Nephilim have been spotted in the Epsilon Eridani system. They're strip mining the planets for resources, likely preparing for another assault on Earth." Sarah nodded, her mind already formulating strategies. "Then it's time we take the fight to them. Humanity can't afford to be reactive anymore." As if on cue, the ship's AI, an advanced system Sarah had helped develop, chimed in. "Catalyst, I've analyzed the Nephilim fleet movements. There's a 78% probability they're unaware of our advancements. The element of surprise could be decisive." "Thanks, our IA," Sarah replied, a small smile playing on her lips. The AI, created by interfacing human computers with Nephilim biotech, had become something of a friend over the past months. General Hawkins looked uneasy. "Sarah, are you sure about this? We're talking about launching an offensive against an alien superpower. The risks are necessary," Sarah cut him off, her eyes flashing. "Every day we wait, the Nephilim grows stronger. It's time to show them that humanity isn't just going to roll over and die." The general nodded, knowing better than to argue. "What's the plan, then?" Sarah's fingers danced over the holographic controls, bringing up a detailed map of the Epsilon Eridani system. "We'll use the catalyst drive to jump in close. Their sensors won't be able to detect us until it's too late. AOEA, prepare the swarm." The A's avatar, a swirling mass of light, pulsed in acknowledgement. "Swarm protocols initiated. All nanite clusters are combat ready." As the crew bustled around her, preparing for humanity's first interstellar assault, Sarah felt a familiar presence brush against her mind. "Hello, Zix," she thought, allowing a touch of amusement to color her mental voice. "Didn't expect to hear from you so soon." The Nephilim Supreme Commander's thoughts were a mixture of anger and grudging respect. "You've grown stronger, young Catalyst. But do you really think you can challenge us in open space? You're children playing with forces beyond your comprehension." Sarah's mental laugh was cold. "That's always been humanity's specialty, hasn't it? Taking the incomprehensible and making it our own. You should have finished us when you had the chance." She felt Zix's frustration ripple through the psychic link. "This is your final warning, Sarah Mitchell. Turn back now, or face annihilation." "Sorry, Zix," Sarah replied, severing the connection. "But we're done running." Turning to the crew, Sarah's voice rang out clear and strong. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare for catalyst jump in T-minus 60 seconds." As the Prometheus's engines hummed with power, Sarah placed her hands on the ship's main control interface. She felt the vessel's systems merge with her own consciousness, the boundary between human, machine, and alien tech blurring into something entirely new. Catalyst drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewscreen blurred into streaks of light, and then they were there, in the heart of the Epsilon Eridani system, surrounded by the unsuspecting Nephilim fleet. For a moment, everything was still. Then all hell broke loose. "Fire at will," Sarah commanded, her voice echoing through the ship and across the entire human fleet that had jumped with them. The space around them erupted in a dazzling display of advanced weaponry. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through Nephilim ships, while swarms of nanites disassembled alien vessels at the molecular level. But the Nephilim weren't unprepared for long. Their organic ships pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, coordinating a counterattack that threatened to overwhelm the human forces. Sarah gritted her teeth, feeling the strain of interfacing with the ship's systems. "AOIA, deploy the Nexus Protocol." The A's voice was calm amidst the chaos. Nexus Protocol engaged, linking all fleet systems to catalyst control. Suddenly, Sarah's consciousness expanded exponentially. She wasn't just connected to the Prometheus anymore. She could feel every ship in the human fleet, every weapon, every crew member's racing heartbeat. With a thought, she coordinated the entire assault, moving ships in perfect synchronization, focusing fire with pinpoint accuracy. The Nephilim, for all their advanced technology, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. In the midst of the battle, a massive portal tore open in space. From it emerged the Nephilim mothership, the same vessel that had fled Earth 6 months ago. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she felt Zix's presence grow stronger. "Enough of this," the alien commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Face me, Catalyst. Let us end this, one-on-one." Sarah knew it was a trap, but she also knew that this might be their only chance to strike a decisive blow against the Nephilim leadership. "General," she said, turning to Hawkins, "you have command of the fleet. I'm going to finish this." Before anyone could protest, Sarah was enveloped in a cocoon of energy. She shot out of the Prometheus like a comet, streaking across the battlefield towards the Nephilim mothership. As she approached, a section of the massive vessel's hull peeled back, revealing a cavernous docking bay. Sarah flew in, her personal shield deflecting stray weapons fire. She landed in what appeared to be some sort of arena, surrounded by thousands of Nephilim spectators. At the center stood Zix, his iridescent exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. "Welcome, Catalyst," the alien commander's voice reverberated through the chamber. "Are you prepared to witness the full might of a truly advanced species?" Sarah's eyes blazed with inner fire as she settled into a fighting stance. "Bring it on, bug boy. Let's see what you've got." As Nephilim and human forces clashed in the space above, Catalyst and Supreme Commander faced off in a battle that would determine the fate of two species. The war for Earth had become a war for the very future of the galaxy itself. The Transcendence. The alien arena pulsed with an otherworldly energy as Sarah Mitchell, Earth's Catalyst, faced off against Supreme Commander Zix of the Nephilim Collective. The air crackled with tension, two titans of cosmic power preparing to clash. "Your species' hubris knows no bounds," Zix's voice boomed, his massive form towering over Sarah. "You think a few months of borrowed power makes you our equal." Sarah's eyes glowed with an inner fire, her voice steady and resolute. "It's not about being your equal, Zix. It's about surpassing you." With blinding speed, Zix struck first. A tendril of biomechanical energy lashed out, aiming to incapacitate the young Catalyst. But Sarah was ready. She dodged with inhuman grace, her body leaving a trail of ethereal light. "Is that all you've got?" Sarah taunted, her hands pulsing with energy. "I thought you were supposed to be advanced." Fury contorted Zix's alien features. The arena trembled as he unleashed a barrage of attacks, each more devastating than the last. Energy beams, gravity distortions, even time-bending waves. The full might of Nephilim technology brought to bear against a single human girl. But Sarah was more than human now. With each attack, she adapted, her catalyst abilities allowing her to absorb and redirect the alien energies. The spectating Nephilim watched in awe as their supreme leader was matched blow for blow by this earthborn anomaly. As the battle raged on, something unexpected began to happen. The energies unleashed by both combatants started to intertwine, creating swirling vortexes of power that defied the laws of physics. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp around them. What is this?" Zix's voice held a note of uncertainty for the first time. Sarah felt it too, a resonance between her powers and the alien technology, building towards something monumental. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I think we're about to find out." Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed them both. Sarah felt her consciousness expanding, merging with the energy around her. In that moment, she understood everything: the true nature of the catalyst power, the history of the Nephilim, the very secrets of the universe itself. When the light faded, the arena was silent. Where Sarah and Zix had stood, there was now a being of pure energy, a perfect fusion of human and Nephilim. "We are one," the being spoke, its voice a harmony of Sarah and Zix. "We are the bridge between species, between realities." The assembled Nephilim fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the cosmic display. Above in space, the battle came to an abrupt halt as both human and alien ships registered the enormous surge of energy. The merged being rose into the air, addressing both fleets simultaneously. "The war is over. There will be no victor, for we have transcended the very concept of conflict. Nephilim, humans, we are all part of a greater cosmic tapestry." General Hawkins' voice crackled over the comms, a mixture of awe and concern. "Sarah, is that you?" "I am Sarah, and I am Zix, and I am something more," the being replied. "We have seen beyond the veil of our limited perceptions. There are threats in this universe far greater than our petty squabbles, challenges that will require us to stand united." As if to underscore this point, a massive spatial rift tore open at the edge of the system. From it emerged a ship of impossible proportions, dwarfing even the Nephilim mothership. The precursors, the Sarisics, being intoned. The ancient race that seeded both our species. They have returned, and they are not pleased with our war. Panic spread through both fleets as the precursor vessel approached. But the transcendent being that was once Sarah and Zix stood firm. "Fear not," it declared, "for in our union, we have unlocked the true potential of both our races. Together, we will face this new challenge. Together, we will forge a future among the stars." With a gesture, the being began to glow even brighter. Streams of energy flowed out, touching every ship, every individual in both fleets. Human and Nephilim alike felt their consciousness expand, gaining a fraction of the cosmic awareness that Sarah and Zix now shared. As the precursor ship loomed ever closer, humanity and the Nephilim found themselves united in purpose for the first time. The war that had begun with an alien abduction now ended with the birth of a galactic alliance. Sarah Mitchell, the girl who had been kidnapped by aliens only to become their greatest fear, had transcended her role as Earth's defender. She had become a cosmic catalyst, ushering in a new age of interstellar cooperation and exploration. The universe watched with bated breath as the newly forged alliance prepared to face the returned precursors. Whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: the future of the galaxy would never be the same. As the transcendent being that was once Sarah and Zix led the combined fleet towards their cosmic destiny, a single thought echoed across the minds of humans and Nephilim alike: the real adventure has only just begun.